was found guilty of the unlawful use of a...
The body was found 400 yards from her own front door, not in the wilderness, not lost on a trail somewhere in the Mount Hood National Forest, less than the length of 4 football fields from the home she had shared with her husband for 12 years. Susan Phoenix Lane had been there the entire time that 800 volunteers and search crews were combing the mountains looking for her. And the man who put her there, her estranged husband, Michael Fournier, had been watching it all unfold. This is the story of Susan Marie Lane and of the divorce papers that cost her her life. Susan Marie Lane was 61 years old. She worked in human resources, and she lived in Brightwood, Oregon, a small, unincorporated community nestled at the foot of Mount Hood, about 45 miles east of Portland. Her friends knew her by a different name. They called her Phoenix. She had been married to Michael Fournier for 12 years. By the fall of 2024, that marriage was over. She had made her decision, and she had taken steps, careful, deliberate steps, to protect herself when she made it official. Friends would later say that Susan had been increasingly fearful of Fournier in the months leading up to the filing. She had begun moving important documents to safe locations. She had made arrangements to protect her dogs, 2 Belgian Malinois mixes that she was devoted to. The home they shared in Brightwood was in Susan's name, only hers, and Michael Fournier knew that when the divorce was finalized, that home would go with her. On November 20th, 2024, Susan Lane served Michael Fournier with divorce papers. He had 41 hours left before he acted. Friday, November 22nd, 2024, Brightwood, Oregon. What happened that morning inside the home on East Miller Road will be told through evidence because Michael Fournier will never offer a credible account of it. What prosecutors established at trial is this. At some point on November 22, 2024, Michael Fournier shot Susan Lane 3 times, in the head, in the neck, and in the chest, with a .22 caliber rifle. Susan died at the hands of the man she was trying to leave. Fournier then covered her body with a tarp and hid it in an area within 400 yards of their house. He then strangled Susan's 2 dogs, the animals she had been taking steps to protect, and moved their bodies separately, disposing of them in Multnomah County. With the dogs gone and Susan's body hidden, Fournier began constructing a lie. He took Susan's truck, he drove it through Portland and the nearby city of Gresham, with the dogs in the vehicle before he killed them. He drove to Northeast Marine Drive, where Susan's truck appeared on surveillance footage parked near the Columbia River. There, investigators would later determine Fournier destroyed Susan's cell phone and submerged it in the water. He then told investigators a completely different story. He said he had last seen Susan on the morning of November 22nd at 9 in the morning. He told them her truck was at the house. He told them her dogs were with her. He told them he had hitchhiked to Portland that day to get a part to repair his own vehicle. None of that was true.
Susan Lane did not show up for work that day. Her employer reported her missing. Almost immediately, the community of Brightwood mobilized. Word spread quickly through the small mountain community that Susan, Phoenix as her friends knew her, was missing. Initial reports suggested she may have gone hiking with her dogs in the Mount Hood National Forest near Welch's. Search crews began combing the area. Volunteers joined them. What followed was one of the most intensive community-led searches in the region in recent years. Over the course of the coming days, combined efforts would exceed 800 hours. They searched Mount Hood National Forest. They searched trails. They searched roads. They searched everywhere Susan might have gone. They did not know she had never left. On November 24th, 2 days after Susan disappeared, Clackamas County Sheriff's detectives attempted to reach Michael Fournier. He had not reported his wife missing. He called 911 that day. When the dispatcher asked him whether he had reported Susan as missing, his response was recorded. He said, "No, but I'm doing it now. I just got served with divorce papers."
Now, Clackamas County Sheriff's deputies said Fournier's estranged wife, Susan Lane, was found dead in Welches near Highway 26 in November 2024. She had been shot 3 times just weeks after Lane had signed divorce papers. Her 2 dogs were also killed.
He had no explanation for where she had gone. Detectives began pulling surveillance footage. What the cameras showed dismantled Fournier's account completely. An auto parts store in the area had captured footage of Michel Fournier behind the wheel of Susan's truck, driving through Portland and Gresham. Both of Susan's dogs were visible in the vehicle. This was after the time Fournier had told police he last saw them. Fournier had told investigators he had never driven Susan's truck that day. The footage showed otherwise. When investigators confronted him about what they had found on camera, Fournier offered no explanation. A second set of surveillance cameras captured Susan's truck near Northeast Marine Drive on the Columbia River. This matched the location where investigators would later recover Susan's cell phone, destroyed and submerged beneath the water. The phone had last pinged near that location, and then it had gone silent. Investigators now knew Fournier had not hitchhiked to Portland. He had driven Susan's truck, he had the dogs, and he had disposed of her phone in the Columbia River. The only question now was where Susan was.
November 29, 2024, Day 7. The official search had been ongoing for a week. Hundreds of searchers had covered enormous stretches of terrain in the Mount Hood area. Susan had not been found. On that Friday, a community member, acting on their own determination to find Susan, searched near her own property, within 400 yards of the home on East Miller Road, less than a quarter mile from her front door. They found her. Susan Phoenix Lane's body was located near Highway 26 and East Miller Road in the Welches area. She had been hidden under a tarp. The Oregon State Medical Examiner's Office conducted an autopsy the following day. The cause of death was confirmed as homicide. She had been shot 3 times. She had been there since the morning of November 22nd. The same day Susan's body was found, Clackamas County Sheriff's detectives arrested Michel Fournier. He was booked into Clackamas County Jail without bail on a charge of second-degree murder. The booking photograph was released by the Sheriff's Office, an exception to Oregon's 2022 law restricting release of booking photos made on the grounds that it might help identify additional criminal activity. Days later, the 2 dogs, Susan's Belgian Malinois mixes, the animals she had been protecting, were found dead in Multnomah County. Fournier later admitted to strangling them and hiding their bodies. He had killed them to complete the illusion that Susan had simply walked away. In the weeks and months that followed, the case moved through the court system. Michel Fournier appeared in Clackamas County Circuit Court for arraignment in February 2025. He entered a plea of not guilty. New court documents released at that time provided the public with additional details about what investigators had gathered. The surveillance footage showing Fournier driving Susan's truck, the phone and the river, the timeline that collapsed under scrutiny. Fournier's legal team requested access to evidence and argued procedural matters leading up to trial. Jury selection was set for early 2026. Susan's family and friends waited. On February 24, 2026, nearly 15 months after Susan Lane was killed, the murder trial of Michel Fournier began at the Clackamas County Circuit Court in Oregon City. The 8-day trial heard from detectives, forensic witnesses, and community members. Prosecutor Alex Hayes told the jury in opening statements that Fournier had devised a methodical and malicious plan that resulted in what Hayes called a brutal execution. The motive, prosecutors argued, was property. The house on East Miller Road was in Susan's name. Michel Fournier feared that in the divorce he would lose it. He feared losing the life he had built. And so, 41 hours after being served with divorce papers,
he made a different decision. The defense asked the jury to keep an open mind, to pay attention no matter how long the case went on. But the evidence told its own story. The surveillance cameras, the phone in the river, the tarp 400 yards from the house, the dogs strangled and moved to another county to make Susan appear to still be with them, the 911 call in which Fournier volunteered without being asked that he had just been served with divorce papers. After 8 days of testimony, the case went to the jury.
On March 5, 2026, after 5 hours of deliberation, the jury returned with its verdict. Michael Fournier was found guilty of murder in the second degree. He was found guilty of unlawful use of a weapon. Sentencing took place the same day, only 1 hour after the verdict was delivered. Clackamas County Circuit Court sentenced Michael Fournier to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. He is 72 years old. Susan's family had attended every single day of the 8-day trial. They were present for the verdict. They delivered victim impact statements before the sentence was handed down. Susan's son spoke directly to Fournier. He said, "I never liked you from the moment I met you." He said, "And now I am shaking with fury." Susan's friends said that the weight they had been carrying for 15 months was beginning to lift, that the truth was in the light now, that her story was being told. One of them said, "Remember Susan for the amazing woman she was."
At 5, also of note, Fournier was found guilty of the unlawful use of a firearm, and that 5-year sentence with that will run concurrently with the murder sentence. Tim and Stephanie?
All right, Jake, thank you so much.
On a Wednesday, she was dead by Friday morning. Her husband hid her body in a place so close to home that it took a community member, not a search crew, not a detective, to find her 7 days later.
I never liked you from the moment I met
Michael
you.
Fournier is 72 years old.
And now I am shaking with
He will spend the
fury.
next 25 years
After
in
killing
prison
Lane,
at
Fournier is
minimum.
also accused of
He
killing
has
her
been
2 dogs,
convicted
Elrond
of
and Elros,
murdering the woman
in
he
multiple
was married
jailhouse
to,
interviews and phone
and
calls.
of killing her 2 dogs to make it appear she had simply walked away. Susan Lane's son said it best. The truth is in the light now, and her story is being told.